The President of the United States just told 457 dead soldiers they died for nothing. Not behind closed doors, not in a private meeting, on social media, for the world to see. Donald Trump just demanded Canada be kicked out of NATO while calling their war dead a bad investment. And what he's doing right now could end the 75-year alliance that's kept America safe since World War II. I'm a former federal prosecutor, and I need to walk you through what's happening because this isn't just shocking, it's illegal. And the timeline reveals something far more disturbing than the headlines are telling you. If this concerns you, hit subscribe, because this story is moving fast and you need to see what happens next. Here's what happened. February 10th, 2026. President Trump issues a public statement demanding NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte immediately begin proceedings to expel Canada from the alliance. His reason? Canada's defense spending is 1.4% of GDP, below NATO's 2% target. Now here's the first problem. What Trump is demanding is literally impossible. There is no mechanism in the North Atlantic Treaty to expel a member nation. None. Article 13 allows countries to leave voluntarily, but forced removal would require unanimous consent from all 32 member states to amend the treaty itself. That has never happened in NATO's 75-year history. Trump is publicly ordering something that cannot legally exist, but it gets worse. Hours after demanding Canada's expulsion, Trump posted on Truth Social that Canadian casualties in Afghanistan were a bad investment and their soldiers died for nothing because we lost anyway. Let that land for a second. 457 Canadian soldiers killed, over 2,000 wounded, 13 years fighting alongside American troops in the longest war in Canadian history, and the American president just told their families it was all meaningless. Canada's defense minister called it an insult to the memory of the fallen and an attack on the core principles of our alliance. The Prime Minister issued a formal rebuke, something Canada almost never does to the United States. But here's what you're not being told. Canada is actually on track with defense spending. In 2024, they announced a comprehensive modernization plan committing to hit 2% GDP by 2032. They've increased procurement. They've expanded Arctic defense capabilities that directly protect American security in the North. So, this isn't about spending, which raises the question, why Canada? Why now? Pay close attention to this timeline because this is where it gets dark. 3 weeks ago, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for senior Russian military officials for war crimes in Ukraine. Canada immediately announced they would enforce those warrants on Canadian soil. The United States has not. Trump has remained completely silent on holding Russia accountable. Now connect the dots. Trump attacks the one NATO ally actively pursuing legal accountability for Russian war crimes. He does it by weaponizing defense spending, a metric that affects almost every NATO member. But he doesn't target Germany, which was below 2% for years. Not Spain, not Italy, Canada, the country enforcing ICC warrants against Russia. From a prosecutor's perspective, this looks like retaliation, and there's a pattern here. During Trump's first impeachment, we watched him use public statements as weapons. He tweeted attacks against Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch while she was testifying before Congress. That's witness intimidation. That's obstruction. The tactic is consistent. Punish those who cross you using the power of the presidency. But let's talk about what he said about Canada's war dead, because this is where the legal exposure becomes severe. American soldiers fought alongside those 457 Canadians. They shared bases, missions, firefights. Some Americans are alive today because Canadian forces saved them. Some Canadians died protecting American positions. When Trump says their deaths meant nothing, he's not just insulting Canada. He's telling American Gold Star families that their sons and daughters who served in Afghanistan died for nothing, too. That's not protected political speech. That's conduct that corrodes military morale, destroys Allied trust, and makes future joint operations impossible. And here's the constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. Trump is attempting to force a treaty modification without congressional authorization. The Constitution vests treaty-making power in the President with the advice and consent of the Senate. The North Atlantic Treaty was ratified by the Senate in 1949. Trump cannot unilaterally alter NATO membership. That's not executive power. That's autocracy. From a legal standpoint, what Trump is doing potentially violates multiple federal statutes. The Logan Act prohibits unauthorized negotiations with foreign governments. Trump's directing NATO officials, and by extension American diplomats, to violate treaty obligations the United States is legally bound to uphold. This could constitute a violation of his oath of office. That oath requires him to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. Systematically destroying our treaty alliances is the opposite of preservation. But here's what keeps me up at night. The consequences of this extend far beyond one inflammatory post. First, institutional collapse. NATO survived the Cold War, the Balkans, 9/11, Afghanistan, and Russian aggression in Georgia and Ukraine. It has never faced an existential threat from an American president actively trying to destroy it from within. If Trump succeeds in fracturing NATO, even partially, he'll accomplish what 75 years of Soviet and Russian strategy could not. Second, precedent. If a president can demand the expulsion of a treaty ally based on personal grievance, what's next? South Korea? Japan? Australia? This isn't a hypothetical slippery slope, it's happening right now. Third, criminal exposure. And I need to be very clear about this because it's going to matter in 2029 when Trump is no longer president. If Trump's actions directly harm U.S. national security and demanding Canada's expulsion from NATO objectively harms our security, there are federal statutes that could apply. I'm not saying Trump has committed treason. That requires a very high legal bar, including a declared state of war. But undermining our alliances to the benefit of adversarial powers is exactly the kind of conduct that invites serious legal scrutiny. And here's the evidence a prosecutor would use: public statements, documented harm to allied relations, and reaction from adversaries. Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs already praised Trump's comments as realistic and refreshing. When your foreign policy is being celebrated by Moscow, you have a problem. But here's what terrifies me most. We've lost the ability to hold powerful people accountable in real time. Impeachment is dead as a constitutional remedy. We saw that twice with Trump. The 25th Amendment requires cabinet cooperation, and Trump has installed loyalists in every position of power. Federal courts move slowly. By the time a case winds through appeals, the damage is done. So, what's left? Public pressure, congressional oversight, and the knowledge that eventually the pendulum swings. History doesn't forget. The record is permanent. And eventually, the American people decide whether they want to live under the rule of law or the whims of one man. Here's the bottom line. What Trump did, demanding Canada's expulsion and dishonoring their war dead, this isn't a one-off. It's a stress test. He's testing how far he can go, how much he can destroy before anyone stops him. And so far, no one has. The Senate hasn't censured him. The House hasn't launched oversight hearings. Allied nations are issuing statements and waiting to see what happens next. This is how democracies die. Not in a dramatic coup. In slow, grinding erosion. Norms, treaties, alliances, trust, all dismantled piece by piece. From a prosecutor's perspective, we're watching a criminal enterprise operate in plain sight, and the tools we normally use to stop it, indictments, trials, accountability, are being blocked by the office he holds. But here's what I hold on to. The law is patient, the record is building, and the American people are watching. What do you think? Is this impeachable conduct? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of this story as it develops, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I'm tracking every legal move, every consequence, every piece of evidence. This is just the beginning. The only way we survive this is if enough people understand what's at stake. More accountability, more truth. I'll see you in the next one.